Welcome to Baseball Biz. I'm Mark Carpenter, your host, and with me today, let's beam him up, Scotty. All right, man, I have been waiting to talk with this guy for a while. He has been on another planet, but he has deemed it reasonable to visit us here on Planet Baseball. Hey, welcome, Mr. Brandon Noe, Mr. Sports Splits Pod himself. How you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing great. Thank you for letting me back off of Planet Suspension.
We're glad to have you here, my friend. But honestly, you've been up a little north of where we're at these days in the land of Georgia. And we'll talk about a team that's from Georgia who's doing pretty well right now in just a bit. But, man, I tell you what, it is good to see you again, Brandon. And for those of you who haven't been paying attention long enough, Brandon has been here from the early starts when Baseball Biz was on at Hillsborough Community College radio, and Brandon had another show called Sports Splits Pod. I thought just Sports Splits, I believe, at the time. And are you still posting things occasionally on Twitter?
I keep saying I'm going to get back into it, use it as like my sports burner account, but I just never have gotten back into it. So hopefully I will again sometime soon.
Just keep liking what I post, and that'll be fine.
I'll retweet it.
That's right, brother. That's right. I'm so glad you're back because, man, there's so much excitement with what's happening in baseball right now, whether it be the business or just tracking the games. And what better time to start than mid-season, just before the All-Star games get started. And let's take a rundown of what's going with those teams, if you don't mind. We'll go division by division, and you and I just interject wherever, as always. But let's see, my friend. All right, man, let's talk for a moment about the AL East. That has just been phenomenal. Where is all of this going? If you're going to be looking at these different teams, where they're going to be in the standings. The very beginning of the year, if we looked at the AL East, we saw the Rays come out and win 13 games in a row. And from opening day, which was just unbelievable. Everybody was watching it. Everybody was criticizing it. So, yeah, they're playing a lot of scrap teams, so you can expect that. But I think they maintained pretty well in the AL East until about 8 games ago. And they started a 7-game losing streak. It's like, arg, man, that just hurt like nobody's business.
Yeah, I wish I could find that stat again. I saw it on Twitter. I wish I saved it and sent it to you, but I believe it said the Rays started the season 29-8, and then ever since then, they played about 29-29 baseball.
And it's been interesting because early in the season, I was talking with Matt Germain, who's really the Rays analyst, and he gets on here quite often. But the one thing he kept reminding me early on said, Mark, I want you to understand something. As enthusiastic as you are, you have to realize there's going to be a point in this season where the Rays have some bumps, where the Rays have some rough spots. And he says, but don't worry about it. They'll smooth those out. And, it looks like they did have the big bump here, like I said, these last few games, but they came back and they redeemed themselves with the last game coming into the middle of the season with a win against the Braves. And let's see, I got a summary here. We got to go into. It was interesting too, Brandon, looking at the last series here at the Trop before the midseason is playing the Braves. They had all 3 of those games this past Friday, Saturday, and Sunday sold out. When the Atlanta Braves performed, you heard a lot of noise. It was a lot of Braves fan in Tropicana. You got mixed feelings. One, you love to see a large crowd. 2, it hurts when you think maybe the Rays contingent of fans isn't as large as the competitions at the Trop.
Yeah, and I know the Braves, I've spent some time in the heart of Braves country the past year or so, and they're honestly the only merchandise I've seen that even comes close to Georgia Bulldog merchandise up there. They're by far and away the favorite team up there, professional team up there. With the Rays, it feels like they get hurt because the Braves were there. I believe they were shown down here before the Rays were here, so they already had a big fan base anyways. And I'm sure a lot of them came down a weekend trip, go to Orlando, go to the beaches, watch your team as well. And I thought for sure the upper deck was going to be open because this was a potential World Series matchup. You think you'd want every seat available. And I'm pretty sure if every seat were available, it would be pretty close to sold out because these have been the two best teams all year. And the Rays were the first team to like 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 wins. The Braves were the first team to 60 wins, which I saw on Twitter as well. And the Braves, they're just hitting everybody. But I can save that for when we get to Braves talk later.
Yeah, okay, we will. It is interesting what you said about Atlanta being the preferred team when there was no Rays team here in town. I had that conversation with others as well who said, Mark, there's a reason. I said, okay, being a newcomer to Tampa, a relative newcomer for about 20 years, that I didn't realize all that pre-Rays attention to Atlanta. And it sounds pretty strong. So I want to give a quick summary here of what happened in their last three games there at the Trop. Let's see. We're looking at Friday's game. Glasnow, he was there. He pitched for 5 2/3 innings. He gave up 2 hits, 1 walk, and 1 run. And the Rays struck out 13 batters in that game. Charlie Morton, former Ray and beloved guy, he and Travis d'Arnaud of Atlanta Braves, both of them had been with the Rays, and they're both performing very well there. Charlie, he pitched 6 1/3 innings. He gave up 4 hits, 2 walks, and 2 runs, and the Braves struck out 9 batters. But finally, it was a low-scoring game, and the Rays lost at home 2-1. And so after game 1, we had Saturday, game number 2, and the Rays had that young talent come up, or Taj Bradley, and he's always fun to watch. And he would be facing the Braves' Spencer Strider. Now, Taj, he pitched 5 innings for the Rays and gave up 4 runs and 2 walks. That hurts. But he seems to have a determination in a post-game conversation that kind of lifts him up. Spencer Strider for the Braves, he pitched 6 1/3 innings. He gave up 4 hits, 1 walk, and 11 strikeouts. 11 strikeouts at 6 1/3 innings. That's impressive, Brandon.
Yeah, him and his Freddie Mercury mustache. He was unhittable all night. That wasn't the Rays' best showing on both sides of the ball on Saturday night. Lucky you didn't have to watch it. And Bradley, I give him credit. He's not supposed to be here right now. He's supposed to still be in Durham, but just with all the injuries, he's had to come up, and he's really showed glimpses of what he can be. But you also see the points where he's not supposed to be here, so you got to cut him some slack. But when you're going against the Braves, you can't cut anybody any slack just because of how good they are.
Amen. Amen, brother. And it was tough. Like I said, Taj, he's got talent and he's got a strong attitude. It just didn't happen that day. Like I said, going against a strong team, the Braves won that one 6-1. Wow. And you said, you said I was basically I didn't have the pain as much because I wasn't able to watch it. And one quick note on that, I am just as displeased as Punch when it came to watching that game, because MLB and its infinite wisdom is making it more and more difficult for fans to watch their team. I mean, if you can't make it to the stadium when they're sold out and you've got MLB.TV or you have Bally Sports, and I have both, you can't watch the Braves. They're going to put them on Peacock. They're going to put them on Fox. They're going to put them on ESPN and Apple TV. These are where a lot of those games are going. And man, that really burns my butter. I'll say it again. It's just wrong. With all the excitement that there's been lately with some really great players, and we'll talk about some of them here in a moment, like Ellie De La Cruz, it saddens me to think that while there's a better opportunity to expand the reach of baseball to people, it's being squashed. Because if we're still talking about broadcasting on cable, there's a lot of people who've cut the cord. Some do direct TV and they could still maybe access Fox there. But there's a lot of people who said, heck with all that. If I'm not getting it through my laptop, just streaming directly, I don't want it. And that's saying no to a lot of people.
Yeah, to me, I was one of those people, and I'm pretty sure I said it on here. I was big on streaming as the future, and I still believe it is. It's just the way all these companies and studios went about it. Like, for example, like you said, Apple TV. I have an easier time getting through the DMV than signing into Apple TV. It just doesn't work for me, no matter what I do. And even like you said, Peacock. This year, college football is NBC is gonna put some of their college football games on there, and that's great. I have Peacock, and I actually like Peacock. I feel like I'm in the minority there. For football, people love to change the channel during commercials. They channel surf. They'll go from one game to another. They'll flip back and forth. You can't do that with this because you got to log out of the app, find the channel. Then you got to get back real quick to the other app so you don't miss a play. We went over this. I think they should simulcast it. That way you get the best of both worlds because you can bring in the people like you who did cut the cord and can't watch those games while also having it on a streaming service so those people can watch it. You get the best of both worlds. And I'm sure there's probably a real complex answer to that. It's probably just too simple to me, but I just think that would be easier in this day and age, the way the streaming world was broken up into millions of pieces.
Yeah. And that's the case. One thing I like about MLB TV, I don't like that it blacks me out from seeing anything locally. I do like is that I can segment out 2 or 3 games on my screen on my laptop anyway. May not be able to do it with the TV so much, but on my laptop, I can break out 2 or 3 games and watch those and go back and forth, etc. And going back to the old cable TV or broadcast TV, I like to be able to just switch a channel, go back to this one, go back to that one, if I don't have something as nice as that MLB TV app. And it is frustrating because the time it takes to go in and out, and you were talking about the challenges of even getting on Apple TV, that technology needs to keep up with what the consumer needs or wants.
And maybe it's just user error for me because I've always had the Apple stuff messed up. Maybe it's just user error, but like I said, I've been through DMV processes smoother than logging into that app.
I was in advertising. I know you're searching across that field as well. And one of the things they taught me early on was you need to make sure that your message can be clear to the lowest common denominator. And it wasn't mean make your message for dumb folks. What it meant was make it as broadly wide available for whatever level of intelligence or education your audience may have. And when it comes to working with apps, with a lot of this technology, we ain't all brain surgeons or rocket scientists for that matter.
Well, I mean, I've seen, like my dad, for example, watching him do technology, and he's in his late 40s. It's something, especially QR codes. That's always a joy to watch. My sister and I always have a good laugh at his expense.
Oh, I have to make sure I send you several of the BaseballBiz business cards where you have to scan the QR code on the back of the card to get to the show. Or you can just go to www.baseballbizondeck.com. Hey, is it okay if I just go ahead and drop that little commercial in the middle of all this?
Hey, of course, you got to do a little bit of advertising.
Okay. And still looking at the AL East and the final game that the Rays were going to play as the leaders of the AL East, but no longer the leaders of all of Major League Baseball. The Rays, after having that, was it, I say 7-game or 8-game losing streak? I think it was 7-game. Yeah, 7-game losing streak. They played a final game at the Trop against the Braves. And I thought, what's going to happen here? Is it just going to go ahead and they're going to sweep them? I thought, good Lord, that would be so painful. But Zach Eflin, man, I was so glad to see him come on board with the Rays this year. He broke that streak.
Eflin, I think, he's probably been one of the best signings that the Rays have had in years. And he's arguably been I think he's been the rock of their rotation because, McClanahan's, he's had his injury problems with his back this year. Glasnow trying to get back up into form, and he has that weird cramping thing in his hand the other night. And he did the thing that an ace does is you come in, you stop the streak, and that's what he did.
Yes, he did. And like I said, I'm really happy to see him there as well. He knocked it dead. The Rays that night, the pitchers, Zach and the rest of them, they delivered 10 strikeouts to the Braves in that game. And let's see, as of Sunday night, I think the Braves now have homered. Love this. 28 consecutive games they've had a homer. Man, if you're a Braves fan, that has to be exciting. I love that. I think the latest home run on Sunday came from a former Ray, Travis d'Arnaud. I have a hard time pulling against Travis when he's up there, but I'm sorry, Travis, when you're facing the Rays, it makes a difference. But that home run didn't make a difference for the Braves that night. Not much anyway, because final score was the Braves 4, Rays 10. And man, it looks like they got their mojo back because that offense has been, dying on the vine. One of my favorite statistics, Brandon, has been LOB. And I cannot even begin to look and see how many players have been left on base in these last several games, but it can't be a nice number.
Oh, man. That's been a running joke for years. My dad and I was like, hey, they didn't win the game, but they won the LOB because they would always leave 8 guys on base. And I don't remember which game it was against the Phillies. I think it was the second game. Whatever game they went into extras, it's like Philly had no problem getting guys in the 11th. But the Rays, they didn't even put a ball in play. We moved the runner or something. They left him on second. If you can't score in extra innings with the second base rule, then you don't deserve to win.
Oh.
So that's another plus with that rule.
At first, I hated the Manfred man, but it does get things moving. It's been an exciting year. I think a lot of people had problems with shift. A lot of people had problems with the pitch clock. I don't think many people had problems with a larger base, but it's been an exciting year, and I don't want to see any stops put to any of it. There's so many good things going with the game. That's it, man. This past week, to be able to see the 2 top teams in Major League Baseball face off, unless you're me, I got to say that folks at WDAE, you've got my ear with Andy and Neil. And even when I do have television, I get to listen to those guys. Let's take a look down the rest of the American League East. And some things early on, I was talking with Nate from Full Count Chaos, Big O's program. If you ever want to find out more about them, check out that podcast, Full Count Chaos. I love that name. And so while all this is going on, the Orioles, they continue to ascend, man. It's been amazing to watch them. They're a good, strong, young team. People keep talking about rebuilds. These guys have got the team put together. They've won 6 of their last 10 games, I believe, and only 2 games. Let's see. Only 2 games behind this. They're just behind the Rays. So they're number 2. They're ready to take over the number 1 spot if the Rays continue to lose. Only 2 games back. The Orioles split a 4-game series in Yankees Stadium this week, okay? I don't know about you, but if I'm a Yankees fan and I see the Orioles come to my home and they slap me around a bit, I'm not going to like it.
And the Orioles, we've been saying for the past year or two that they're a team of the future because we saw the prospects that were coming up. We saw the momentum that they were building. I thought they would be good this year. I didn't think they would be this good, where they're borderline the best team in baseball.
Yeah.
And you put me on ESPN and call me Stephen A here with a hot take. I think, how possible do you think it'd be that they could make a long Cinderella type run just from the fact that they are young? They really don't know any better about the playoffs. Because we see it happen all the time where a team comes in and is they don't know better.
Yeah.
And they end up making a run. Is it out of the realm of possibility to say that the Orioles could do that?
Oh, not at all. You and I have talked about it. I said talked about it with Nate too. I see them. They're definitely postseason, and they could be the American League champion. That's not at all impossible. But right now, though, and if you're the Yankees, like I said, you're going to be sad as can be because hey, they slapped them around with a 14-1 win the other day, and most of that came in the third inning. If you want to hurt your opponent, you like to do it in the first inning, and I think they came out with Gunnar Henderson. He started out the first inning for the Orioles, and he gets a home run. And then by the time you get to the third inning, we got Ryan O'Hearn hitting his double and bringing some folks in. Cedric Mullins hits a double, brings some folks in. And then Westberg, he hit an RBI double. It just gets to be ridiculous. But yeah, I say they have a very strong chance of being there. I could see them as the American League champs.
Yeah, and you're talking about the Yankees. Their year, like they just fired their hitting coach, and I believe that's the first time that Cashman has ever fired a coach mid-season. That's just something that he never does. I believe they said they split their series with the Orioles. They lost 2 out of 3 against the Cubs over the weekend. The Yankees, they feel like at least Boone and maybe Cashman again. Everybody's for the millionth year in a row. Yankees fans are calling for them to be fired. This could be the off season. Maybe they get their wish because it feels like they're like, I don't know. I can't think of the word. Like they're stagnated. They can't do anything anymore.
They cannot move. They cannot move the dial. And you were talking about what happened with the Cubs and the O's, but they also lost a series to the Cardinals. I think just before all of that, it's oh my gosh. They're now 4th in the AL East. That means the Blue Jays are above them. And I didn't know if the Blue Jays were going to get their act together. It seemed like with Alek Manoah, boy, they were just suffering before they took him out for rehab. He had a 2.7 record with a 5.91 ERA. He allowed, let's see this number here, 42 earned runs in 64 innings pitched. Oh, my gosh. Pulled him from the mound, thank goodness, and put him in a rehab. But he came back. He did pretty well, I think, the other day against the Astros.
It was the Tigers. I think he went 7 and gave up 1 run.
Oh, there you go. Wow. Wow. Okay, so we know where the Yankees, we know where the Blue Jays are, and that leaves number 5 in the AL East, and that is the Boston Red Sox. 9 games back and 5th in the AL East with a 48-43 record. I think that's the latest, yeah. They swept the Jays in a 3-game series recently, and they took 2 of 3 games against the Rangers at Fenway. Then they also swept the Oakland A's in a 3-game series in Boston. So they're not a dead, dying team. They're 9 games back, and that's just 1 game less than the Yankees above them. There's some real possibility there to advance up the AL East. I don't know as far as the rest of the season what to expect, but
yeah, with the East, and I believe it's next week, the week series, you have Orioles and Rays going up against each other. That could potentially be for first place, depending on how both teams do this weekend.
The All-Star week coming up here, and it's going to be exciting times. We'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. Between the game, the home run derby, the draft, gosh, there's a lot going on. But let's continue down on what's happening with the rest of baseball. I know you did a little bit of a deeper dive on the next division in the American League. Who is that?
Oh, the AL Comedy Central.
Yeah.
Gotta dust off that nickname. And I believe you and Matt talked about it about a month or so ago when he was on, about eliminating divisions and just doing like the top 6 teams make the playoffs.
Yeah.
This division is exhibit A of why that should be the case. You look at the Guardians, they're in the lead of the Central. They're the 9th best team, and they would be 7th in the wild card by my rough count. And like that, you're saying they deserve a chance to play for a World Series. But you would take a team like the Yankees, the Red Sox, the Mariners even out of the playoffs But because a team won a mediocre division and them themselves were barely mediocre, deserve a chance to win a World Series. Even the Tigers have a chance to make the playoffs. Watching them play, they're not good.
Oh gosh.
So this is Exhibit A. Please get rid of divisions sometime in the future. I like how hockey used to do it and how basketball used to do it, I believe. Whereas, like, you had your conferences and they just took the top 8 teams and they make the playoffs and they seeded them on their record. That's the way it should be.
Yeah. Yeah. The AL Central is an embarrassment to baseball and certainly to anybody who's in that division. As you said, the Guardians are leading us with a record of 45-45, man. You go all the way to the bottom of the AL East, and the Red Sox have got a 48-43 record. So the Guardians lead the AL Central with a 500 win percentage. And you go all the way down the line to the poor Royals. And I always feel bad for Kansas City and Salvador Perez, who I just think is fantastic. They're at a 26-65 win-loss record, a 286 percentage. Ouch. Ouch.
And they're still not the worst team in the American League. At least they have that going for them.
Yeah, we'll get that division here in just a minute. But it's sad. I don't know, brother. I have to agree with Matt. I like the idea. I don't know, man. I like the divisions. And do we just break them up and throw some of these other guys from the East into the Central and West? Maybe we get rid of the whole geographical designation because we've reduced the number of games that you play in your own division. I don't know. But I think Matt was on point about maybe just, I don't know, completely eliminating the divisions, but maybe something different.
Yeah, something has to change because we're only at the unofficial halfway point, but I don't see a team in the AL Central that deserves a shot in the playoffs when their best team is 9th in the entire American League at best.
I tell you what, brother, we won't beat up on them anymore on the AL Comedy Central as you have named them, and I think unfortunately and appropriately. But if we continue to move down the American League, we get to the West, and we're looking at. I've always found them to be interesting and good to watch. You got a former World Series, the Astros, Rangers, Mariners, Angels, and then the team, the Oakland Athletics, a team with a very storied history, a team with some fantastic players that will go down as part of the Hall of Fame. And looking at the 70s, I think I mentioned before on the show, I had the opportunity to briefly meet Joe Rudy and his family. And you see these guys, you think Reggie Jackson, Riley Fingers, and that kind of history. But that's all about to be eradicated. Let's go down the list here, and I'm going to talk more about the Athletics. So the Rangers, Texas Rangers, they've let's see, their last 10 games, they've won only 3 of those. They're at a 571 win-loss percentage. The Astros are following them 50-41 on their wins and loss, 549 percentage. The Mariners, who I expected a little bit more of, they're 45-44 and just over 500. Angels 45-46 at 495, and the Athletics, as you mentioned, the Royals are not at the very bottom of the American League. The Athletics are sitting with a win-loss of 25-67, which gives them a 272 win-loss percentage. Ouch.
I did expect more from the Mariners. I didn't think they'd be like the Orioles or the Rays right now, where they're 54 and 58 wins. But I thought they'd be like the Blue Jays or the Astros, where they're sitting at 50 wins at the All-Star break. Something like that, because, they had a brighter future. And maybe this is like a sophomore slump type of year for them. Kind of like how the Rays had it in 2009 after they went on a World Series run. So maybe that's what that is for them, or it's just they need to get going because they've gone 7-3 over their last 10. So maybe they're just going to be a late bloomer coming into this year. They've fallen short of expectations this year. The Angels are they're just the Angels. They have all that talent, and things just seem to go wrong for them on the injury front, especially because there was one day. It was the day they played I think it was the 4th of July, actually. It's like 11:30. They put Trout on the IL for his wrist surgery. Then at 6 o'clock, Rendon fouled the ball off of his shin and had to leave a game. And then an hour later, Ohtani left the game because of a blister on his middle finger. So it's like, that's the Angels over the last how many years in just a span of 8 hours?
I don't know. I thought Joe Madden was going to turn everything around. They turned him around out the door. Again, look at the talent of the Angels. You got two of the best people in baseball. Some would argue absolutely number 1 and 2 with Ohtani and Trout. And if you look at their last 10 games, they've won 1 out of their last 10 games, Brandon. I know injuries plague teams. I know all kinds of things happen with teams, but all teams wind up with injuries. It seems like the Angels, I don't know if it's the fates conspiring against them or what, but they're just not there. And I don't know what it's going to take to get them out of there.
Maybe, I don't know how, this isn't really like a good baseball opinion. It's like, maybe they're just cursed. They're just not allowed to have good things because they've had 2 of the best players of the century at the same time on the same team and done nothing with them.
Yeah.
And that's all we're going to hear for the next maybe 6-7 months. Where is Ohtani going? Because I hate to say it, Angel fans, everybody's going to be saying he's going somewhere else, even if he might want to stay in LA. I don't know. I haven't really heard anything on that front. That's going to be dominating the baseball headlines the next few months. It already is.
Yeah. Yeah. Postseason. Okay. Postseason. The man wants to get postseason. He wants to get the World Series, and he sees that Angel ticket. That train doesn't go there. It hadn't gone there. So if he's going to be moving somewhere else, you know that is got to be a major consideration. Maybe he'll move to the Mets.
Oh, you want to talk about a team that falls short of expectations?
Yeah, let's move to the National League. Let's take a look at the NL East.
Oh, we skipped over the A's.
Okay, yeah, let's come back. I'm sorry, they're so forgettable. Let's go back to the A's. Tell me, because you've done I'll try to step away from that and erase that part from my memory. It's disastrous, but share with us your insights on the poor Oakland A's and their fans.
Oh man, this team it's been my sick obsession the past few months. And I've watched a guy, he works for, I believe it's NBC Bay Area. His name is Brody Brazil. He's like their version of Rich Hollenberg. And just this whole situation, it's one of those things where if you were to write it on a movie script and pitch it to a movie studio, they would say, this is ridiculous. It makes no sense. We're going to pass. It makes the owner for Major League look like a confident owner. Because Mike Fisher, I believe that's the name. I'm horrible with names. I'll be honest. I apologize.
You should work for ESPN.
Oh, shots fired.
No, sir.
Their owner, he buys the team. He does nothing but slash payroll. The Coliseum has been a horrible place to play for basically as long as I've been alive. And Oakland, they already lost the Warriors, where at least they went across the bay to San Francisco. So it's not like they left town. The Raiders, they left for Vegas too. The A's, it's like that's the last thing they have. And Oakland, I believe, is like one of the most underrated sports towns out there. And you got a guy who's coming in saying he's going to move the team. And Brody Brazil, he's done a really great job. I really recommend watching his videos on this whole thing. The Tropicana site where they want to build their new stadium, it'd be only on 9 acres with a retractable roof. And there's no way in today's day and age you're going to fit a modern ballpark with a retractable roof on 9 acres. I believe the smallest is 10 and a half. and that's the Brewers Stadium. And then they come in there. They upset the casino owners almost immediately, saying that the casino owners would be responsible for overrun costs. So they already upset them. You got the Tropicana site, which is tiny on its own. And then they release a rendering of it. They put this big ring over it. Like, why is that there? And I don't know if it just didn't cross their mind or something. But if you look in the background of that rendering, it's right next to the airport for Las Vegas. So it's like the FAA might not allow that to happen. Put a big ring right next to the airport. And then I believe I'm not good with the money aspect of things, but with the bonds that Clark County would be giving them to help pay off the stadium, football season, there's going to be a drop. And especially in Vegas, there's so much stuff you can do that can take your time. It's like here in Tampa or Miami, there's so much other stuff you can be doing. So it's like, if they're not good, there's other stuff that people can do to fill their time. And especially in Vegas with their sports teams, the Golden Knights, love them or hate them, Vegas really embraced them because they go by the Vegas born mantra or whatever it's called. They really go with that. And the Raiders, they moved there a couple years ago, and guaranteed, or given that they haven't been a very good team, they don't feel like they've been embraced as much as the Golden Knights have, because they were somebody else's team that moved there, and they weren't a team that was awarded to them and built up in the image of the city. So that's another thing that's going for it or going against it. It's just this whole thing makes no sense. This is one of the times where it's like, I wish MLB would say, this is unacceptable. You should be investigated and possibly lose your team. Because this whole thing has been a disaster.
I don't think there's any doubt about that.
It seems like it's all but guaranteed at this point to happen. And honestly, if I were Vegas, I would say, I don't want this team here. I've seen your track record. I'd rather take my chances on an expansion team, to be honest. And Oakland, I would say they deserve an expansion team, because that team or that city has been nothing but kicked by this ownership group and this team. They honestly deserve better. Honestly, both cities deserve better.
We'll see how all this plays out. It's unfortunate. And like I said, a team with such storied history, a team which normally has a strong fan base, but who's abdicated to the insanity of the ownership not putting forth the talent on there. And by the way, I can't imagine being the guy who got drafted by the A's right now. It seemed like it would be a very uncertain future, but I don't know. We'll see. Okay, now let's dig into the National League, and the number one team in baseball also leads the NL East. That is, of course, the team we were talking about earlier, the Braves, the Atlanta Braves. Okay, hometown heroes for you and your collegiate buddies. What do you have to say about that team, my friend?
Oh, man. I don't know what hasn't been said about them. They're just beating everybody. They're hitting the cover off the ball. Their pitching was great, especially this series outside of Sunday. They just shut down the Rays.
Yeah.
Offensively, Acuna, looks like an MVP again. Even Albies has it seems like he's not really getting the credit. Albies and Olsen as well. Feel like looking at them both. Acuna gets all the MVP buzz. He has 21 homers, 55 RBIs, hitting .331, according to the ESPN app. I know how you're a fan of them. And then Albies, he has 22 homers, 63 RBIs, and Olsen 29 homers, 72 RBIs. So it's like the guy that's getting all the MVP buzz on this team, he doesn't even lead the team in homer RBIs.
Oh, it's stunning to me when you look at what they've achieved. Brian Snitker has a way with that team, and the front office has had a way with bringing in good talent and keeping them there. So I think that's making a difference. Unless you got something more to say about the Braves, I want to talk about the Marlins.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
The Marlins. We got Lou Schiff on the show occasionally here, who's like the Marlin fan, and for good reason. But over the last few years, you keep saying Sandy Alcantara. I can't say his name properly. Sandy has been amazing. They've had Sixto Sanchez. He's also been amazing. There's all kinds of other players on the team I've enjoyed watching, but a lot of times it seemed difficult for the Marlins to put it together. Right now, the Marlins are in number 2 spot in the NL East with a winning percentage of 576. Now, to give you an idea of that, you say 576, they got 53 wins and 39 losses. But much like some things you'll see in the American League, that winning percentage outranks both of the leaders in both the NL Central and the AL Central and the AL West, just by a smidgen on the Rangers of the AL West. But that's been a team that has continued to grow. A lot of excitement with what's going on down there in Miami.
They've done it very quietly this year because I'll be honest, I didn't know until a couple weeks ago until I really looked at the standings. Like the Marlins are one of the best teams in baseball, and you wouldn't know because nobody's talking about them.
That sounds familiar, doesn't it?
It does.
The Tampa Bay Rays, nobody thought much about them. Then 2020 and COVID came, and they wound up being the World Series, and still they weren't talked about much. But I felt that way also about the Orioles this year, and yet now they're evolving. And the Marlins, yes, I am absolutely excited to see them coming up. And as you say, quietly, because they're not, the team right now. They're 8.5 games back behind the Braves, but still, when your winning percentage is better than the leaders of four other of the 6 divisions, that says something. You're building something. I'm actually looking forward. I'm going to meet Lou down there in Miami sometime soon and watch the Rays play the Marlins. So that should be a lot of fun.
Will we be seeing you on TV in the background?
Oh yeah, I'll be waving. Actually, man, I got some. I got some fairly inexpensive seats. I'm about 11 rows back near home plate for $20 each. Now,
oh, nice.
Yeah, I bought them on SeatGeek. This is not a commercial, but I bought them like a month or so ago because I wanted to get to see them. I got to tell you, my experience is that my wife and I also went to Fenway and watched the Red Sox play the Rays there in the Code. Man, it was like a wind chill of 41 and a slight drizzle the whole time we were there. But I have a better respect for Red Sox fans when I realize that what you have as far as rain delays, et cetera, and just being out there in some sometimes very nasty weather. But and coming back, saying where I'm going to be going, also going to see the Orioles this year. I hope to see Nate up there later on as well. But the Marlins come back to what's going on there. They've got a new manager, Kim Ang. She's just been there a couple of years as the general manager. And these post-Jeter years, they might really prove to be something, not just here, but on years to come.
Yeah, I'd like for the Marlins to be good. We don't have, it's funny, the only in-state rivalry that Florida really has is in hockey with the Lightning and Panthers, where they've met in the playoffs a couple times and they don't like each other. We always each side takes shots at the other when they can. You'd think it'd be baseball or football. It's not. Neither team is ever good at the same time, really, in any of those sports, especially in baseball. It feels. And football and Dolphins, they might be actually pretty good this year at the Bucks. They'll be at the complete other end of the spectrum. Oh. We don't have to talk about them, but I think it'd be really cool to have the Marlins and Rays good at the same time, because that could help grow the game with younger fans like it did for hockey.
Yep. Oh, one last thing, talking about Fenway. When I was there, my wife and I took a tour through Fenway, which was great. And one of the people who were guiding the tour said, "Where y'all from?" Tampa. So you can thank us for that Super Bowl. We gave you that fella who actually won it for you. And they started to say something about the Trop. I said, "Now, how many?" Oh, that's right. We don't have any rainouts down there, and it's 72 stinking degrees throughout the game. Oh, Thought you guys might like to remember that too.
Hey, only we can make jokes about the Trop. We're from here.
That's right, brother. Oh, gosh. Anyway, looking back again at the NL East, the Phillies weren't looking that fantastic early on, but they seem to be moving forward on this. I'm not sure where we'll see them as months go on, but number 4 in the NL East, it is those magical and miracle Mets. Not the team that, the team that owner Steve Cohen was ready to make a real commitment to and pour a lot of dollars into some aging pitchers. And my gosh, man, they're under 500, 42 wins, 48 losses. They are 18 and a half games back behind the Braves. Woof. I don't know.
I don't know either.
Where do you start, brother? Again, you're looking at a team almost like the Angels. You see some top talent there, and you expect great things, but it's just not happening. And I don't know what they need to do to get the engines firing all at the same time, all the pistons running at the same time, I should say. But it's not there yet. And Steve Cohen, when he spent all that money at the beginning, said, "Oh, you're buying a World Series. That's all you're doing." And I actually feel for him. I'm not that I'd want them to be at the World Series, but daggone, man, I'd love to see anybody who puts that much money down that they're actually getting something back from it. What is it? Is it Sports Track? I was looking at them earlier today, and the total amount that I remember for their salary was like $324 million or something like that. Yeah. With I think the Rays are probably under 80 million, but geez, you can't buy a team.
Maybe with the Mets, and maybe it's the same thing with the Angels, because it does feel like they're the same team with all that talent on them. Maybe it's just a case of you can put all that talent together, but they can't play as a team. Maybe something like that, maybe?
Yeah. I've talked time again. I work down at the Tampa Baseball Museum now and then. And one of the things I remember hearing was somebody asking Al Lopez, who was the first Tampanian ever in Major League Baseball, entered back in 1928, I think. He also was a manager, and the person said, "What is your success as a manager?" And I can't remember the exact quote, but it was being able to bring together 26 people with different personalities and making it work. And I thought that is such a realistic attitude about what is required of a manager to get a team to work, because you got showboats out there. You got people who need you to hold their hand. You got professionals who just as soon never look in your direction because they know what they want to get done. And when you have all these type of personalities, it can be difficult, because if you're spending that much money, it's probably players with an all A type personalities. And that doesn't mean they disregard their teammates. It just means sometimes folks are set in their ways.
Yeah, maybe that's just all it is, because Verlander and Scherzer, unless all of a sudden they're over the hill and just has-beens at this point.
Yeah.
Maybe that's it. They just can't play as a team, is all it is.
I don't know. We'll see. And, and much as we're mocking the Mets here and being 18 and a half games back, it's worth noting there's another team in the NL East, and that's the Nationals, with a .400 winning percentage and 24 and a half games back behind the Braves. So send up the white flag with a 36 win, 54 loss record. Fans, we'll send you home when you come back next year. We'll see if we can field a team that's actually going to do something.
Hey, they won a World Series a few years ago. At least have that.
True. Now, moving on to the NL Central, and there's no comedy here. There's teams that are performing differently than I thought. Cardinals, historically, I thought that they would be moving up, but that's neither here nor there, because there's a lot of things in history that make no sense where folks are today. The Brewers, I had the Brewers early on saying they're going to be leading this all the way. And the Brewers, they're just barely over 500, 538, and they are in the second place in NL Central. Number one is the Cincinnati Reds. And outside of the Braves, they have probably one of the best records over the last 10 games, having won 7 of the last 10 games. I want to pause here for a moment of reverence. And that is for what's happening with that Reds team. A couple of things. Think about it. Joey Votto returns, a guy who is a lifelong Cincinnati Red. He is a fan favorite, and there was an energy that came with him. And as much as I'm excited about seeing him come back, there's a young man who joined the team this year who completely blew just about everybody's socks off, and that's Mr. Elly De La Cruz. Can you believe this, Brandon? The guy's a rookie. At this point, he's got 30 games in. He's 21 years old. He's from the Dominican Republic. First couple of years in the Cincy system, because they were the ones who brought him in. They drafted him. He was, they were kind of looking at him, but not much. And then he seemed to be taken off in the minors. People weren't paying enough attention to him when he came in later into the season. It was around his 16th or 15th game. And believe it or not, I was trying to think, who were they playing? The Braves? Let's see. In his 15th game with the Reds at the Great American Ballpark, he hit for the cycle. A double, a home run, a single, and a triple in his first 4 at-bats in that game. And he led the Reds to their 12th straight win. So that was a nice little winning streak for them, too. And I think it's like the longest winning streak they've had since 1957. Now, obviously, it wasn't De La Cruz's making the only difference. Joey Votto was doing fantastic that game, and I can't remember everything. He did a lot, but De La Cruz got all the press for hitting the cycle because it had been since 1989, and Eric Davis had hit the cycle back then. So in that game, by the way, Reds won that game when he hit the cycle, and that's with 11-10 win over the Atlanta Braves. Wow.
Elly De La Cruz, as much as you've heard him accomplish and how much you've heard about him, you'd think he'd have been up at the major league level all year. He's only been here a month. And just the other night, he stole every base on the field in only 2 pitches. I don't think that's ever been done before in the history of baseball. And this is a guy, and I hope they've learned, from Mike Trout, this is a guy they need to really market and put on commercials out there.
Yeah.
Because what he's doing is amazing. It's like Ohtani. You market those two, you can draw people that maybe don't really care for baseball or don't really watch it. You can draw them in just by saying, hey, these guys seem cool. I'll check them out and see what happens.
I love it. I'm right there with you. I mean, Elly De La Cruz, he's got a positive energy. He's out in the field. He's got his locks flailing behind him, and he shows an excitement. You get that whole team spirit with him. And like you said the other day, he stole second, third, and a homer. He did. Oh my gosh. Let's see. What was it? I'm looking here. I think they said that's the first time that's happened with the Reds since 2009. No. Hang on. Yeah, they became the first Reds player since 1919 to steal second, third, and home in the same inning. But he did it, the same at bat, did he?
Yeah, he did it in 2 pitches.
Oh my gosh, I love the larger bases. But even without him, this guy's got the talent. He may have been able to achieve it anyway. It's just amazing.
He's the real life version of Willie Mays Hayes.
Yes. Yeah, that fits. That really fits. I mean, oh my gosh. Well, I again, going back to what we're looking at with these folks and what's happening as far as the standings. It's not surprising to see the Reds doing what they're doing. And one other thing, I want to look back to NL East for one thing, because it's an apology on my part. A player there who's just done amazing, Luis Arraez. I keep wanting to call him Arraez.
I've done that before.
Yeah. So apologies, Luis. I should have said that earlier. But getting back to NL Central and the Reds, Ellie De La Cruz, I can't wait to see the future of this guy. He is going to be a generational player. He's going to be someone much like Ohtani, people are going to be talking about for years.
I hope he can keep this up and it's not just a flash in the pan because I've only seen highlights of him. I've never seen him play an actual game. And I hope I can watch him play a game sometime soon because he looks like a ton of fun to watch.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. The NL Central, the Brewers, like I said, they're not doing as well as like they're only a game back behind the Reds. And then you look at the middle part of the NL Central, you got the Cubs. The Cubbies, tough year, under 500 at 472, but it was fun watching them beat the Yankees. I think it was at Yankees Stadium too.
Oh yeah, it's the first time they won there in over 100 years, I believe.
And if we continue down the list in the MLB standings for the Central, we'll see the Pirates at number 4, and they're under 41 wins and 49 losses. But they got the first crack at the draft the other night. And who was a young man? Paul Skeens, and I think he's from LSU. It'll be interesting to see how they do with that. They've had some good luck in the past. I mean, I didn't realize some of their first overall picks in the past that Garrett Cole was ranked amongst those. And back in 2011. I know when it comes to the Pirates, they made some trades with us in the past. Who was it? Did we get Glasnow and Austin Meadows from them with the Rays?
Yeah, we got those two and Shane Boz as well, I believe.
Sheesh. Yeah, and recently I think Choi, I don't know if we actually traded Choi or if he was a free agent and went to the Pirates.
I think we traded him. I can double check, but I believe it was a trade.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people were sad to see him go from first base, but my gosh, it has been amazing to watch Yandy Diaz and everything he performs at the plate and at first base. So while there was a bit of sadness seeing Choi go away, the Rays, you're not going to be attached to any player for too long because they're ready to move some folks up and some folks out. And Neander in the bunch, you're going to see great players, certainly good players moved. One other one I would talk about that they did that with recently, kind of bounced around here, is Corey Kluber. The Rays pretty much said, nope, I'm not going to bring you back. And Red Sox did, and Corey, unfortunately, has done so poorly there, they've actually put him on as a reliever. So, tough times there.
Oh, yeah, and Choi was traded. He was traded for a right-handed pitcher.
Who is that?
Jack Hartman.
Okay. All right, so he's probably down in the minors right now because I don't remember seeing his name on the Rays roster. Oh, and then pulling up the last in the NL Central is the Cardinals with a 38-52 win-loss record. They are 11.5 games back. Not as bad as the Nationals, who are 24.5 games back in the NL East, but it's still pretty tough. Let's venture on then, unless you have something else to talk about the NL Central, on to the NL West.
Yeah, I'd say let's head west.
Okay. It's been interesting. You look at the Dodgers, a great history there, in recent years. And looking there as far as most recently, the last 10 games, they won 7 out of 10. They're at a 0.573 winning percentage, 51 wins, 38 losses. And if you look at who's right behind them, it's the Diamondbacks. And actually, they're even. They share the number 1 spot with the Diamondbacks. And the Diamondbacks, to me, I don't know that I would say they were ever underrated, but I think there's always been so much attention, the Dodgers, the Padres, and the Giants, that I think the Diamondbacks tend to be overlooked earlier in the year. And, I mean, the Padres, they're 4th in this division. I expected greater. They're 478, 43 wins, 47 losses. Giants, 49 and 41 at the number 3 spot. And laying there at the bottom in the National League is the Colorado Rockies. 34 wins, 57 losses with a 374 winning percentage or loss percentage. I don't know. It's tough, man. If you're a Rockies fan, if you're a Nationals fan, if you're an Oakland fan or a Royals fan, all those are teams that I know that are really hurting, and the fan base has to be as well. Maybe again, going back to what Matt Germain was talking about, eliminating the divisions. Maybe you're not pointing as much as to these teams that are number 5. Of course, I guess they would all be number 27, 28, 29, 30. They're going down that list instead. I don't know if there's any way to raise up the attitudes of fans with seasons like that going on.
You just gotta try and sell them that you're rebuilding and actually do a good job of it, like say the Tigers did, which that sounds like they could be headed for another rebuild over the next few years. Maybe a quicker one from what I've heard, but it's still a rebuild nonetheless.
Yes, rebuild it is. I got to tell you, Brandon, that's a scary word and people don't like to hear it. I know the Orioles heard it for several years and it's starting to show fruit there, but people don't want to hear that word because they keep thinking that's just a way of managing, saying, yeah, we're not willing to invest the money or the talent or whatever else to make this happen. But I do believe it does make a difference. What else we got, my friend?
With what you were saying with rebuilds, to me, it just depends on when it's happening. If it's like something where you feel like you're close and then they blow it up for some reason just because they don't want to spend money, then that's upsetting. But sometimes, like for example, us with the Lightning, there's going to come a time where there's going to be no choice but to rebuild because guys are getting older, they're retiring or going off to do new things, where you just have to rebuild. And it just happens. But every team will go through it. Some teams just go through it a lot more and a lot longer than other teams, but it's just it's probably the only guarantee in sports is that you'll rebuild at some point.
And I think it's interesting if you look at farm systems and you see who's developing what. And I can only imagine going back to being a Cincinnati Reds fan and having watching Elly De La Cruz the last couple of years in the minors and seeing him come up. And then this year, not for the start of the year, but they bring him up and bam, he very well could be rookie of the year. There's others out there, I'm sure, that I haven't paid enough attention to. But I think with Elly De La Cruz hitting the cycle and stealing all those bases the other day with 2 pitches, that was just stunning. So I would put him there. We've entered the halfway mark, my friend. It's All-Star season. It's home run derby time. And I'd love to go on and on with these things, but maybe we'll talk about that another day, because I can go on a whole diatribe about you and I have talked before about the home run derby. Are there any other points you want to hit today?
Man, I think we pretty much covered everything we set out to cover.
Yeah, I feel likewise. Okay, my friend. Well, this has been episode number 199, and I want to say how thankful I am to have been able to work with Brandon on many of these episodes, especially early on, back before we were actually a podcast. We were live broadcast at Hillsborough Community College Hawk Radio. Coming soon to you, Mr. Sports Splitspot and Mark Cartman with Baseball Biz on deck. Okay, good Lord, who is that guy settling down? Too much caffeine. No, Brand, I want to thank you, man. It's been a lot of fun. Well, thanks all the folks joining us here today. And do you have any kind words you want to share with our listeners before we go out into the All-Star Games, All-Star Week?
Just everybody, thank you for listening. And whether it's your first time or if you've been here with every episode that we've listened to, especially if you listen to every episode, you deserve a special shout out. Having to listen to the two of us over that time span. And we thank you for the support. Mark, you've done really good over that time. I've enjoyed listening to the show as well. I've been on suspension, even though I'm just kidding. I've been off away doing other things, but it's always a fun thing to listen to, especially when you bring guests on like Matt Germain, all those guys. They do really great stuff. And I can't wait to hear what's in store for hopefully another 200 episodes.
Absolutely, my friend. So we'll be coming up on number 200 here shortly. And again, I want to thank Brandon. And I want to thank all of our fans for joining us here today on Baseball Biz on Deck. We got a whole lot going on with Baseball Biz on Deck. We're actually on the road some of the time. We're out visiting a couple of communities and talking about the history of baseball. So if you ever want us to participate with you, love to. You can reach me, Mark, at the Baseball Biz on Twitter, or you can reach me by email at marcuscorbett@gmail.com, or go to www.baseballbizondeck.com, and you can leave me a message there. There's a little place where you can click on a mic and say whatever you wish to. So thank you all again for joining us here today. Yeah, I know. Say what you want to. So thank you all for joining us here today, and we look forward to talking with you again real soon. Special thanks to XTIC RUX for the music rocking forward.